Okay, this morning we're continuing to process some mollies. We're trying to recover strains that we lost in the Texas winter storm and the aftermath. Our sailfin mollies did not survive the ammonia levels after all the dead fish, after our systems got too cold in the winter storm. 6 days of no power and couldn't get, we lost 85% of our fish. And one of the strains we lost was gold wag sailfins. I'm going to put these guys in the aquarium. This fish has a long history. We got in 1997 or 98, I can't remember which now. We bought a pair of gold sailfin mollies from a customer in Albuquerque and took them home, and the female promptly died. The male was lonely, so I collected some Phacelia latipena females from San Antonio River. That's our native sailfin molly, and gave them to him. That there's a little backstory on that. We were living in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the time. I didn't have a Texas fishing license, so at 3 o'clock in the morning, I snuck down to the river with a little hand net and some bags and got some sailfin mollies. Gave him some females and started breeding back to him to get gold-bodied fish. One of the males that descended from him looks something like this fish. This fish actually has a little bit more black, probably more like this one. Had some black, and I imagined a bright gold fish with black fin, a gold wag sailfin, and started breeding for that. And I'm basically at the same point today, 27 years later, trying to recreate that fish. But these are all descendants of that male, by the way. So, okay, this is our breeding colony, and I'm going to show you some. I set this breeding colony up 3 cycles ago. What I did was just go through all of our mollies and get some that had a little bit of black and were gold, and put them together, and that's this group of fish. And if we go over here, doggies out of the way, Susie, show this bucket. This is their first batch of offspring, and you can see that there's some marbles, some greens. It's a real mix of fish. I'm going to go through and pull out young females from there to add to the breeding colony because they're likely his daughters. Breeding live bears is a little bit complicated. Faciliidae live bears, which are the swords, platies, guppies, mollies, and some other fish, it's a little complicated by the fact that females can store sperm, and so you can never be sure of the once a female's been exposed to multiple males, you can never be sure of the father. But I have learned that new sperm tends to replace old sperm. I've done testing with genetic markers so I could tell. But if you looked at, remember that bucket, it had a real mixed match of stuff because these females have been exposed to other males. Let's take a look at them real quickly. They're nice. This is a fairly nice female. That doesn't have good gold coverage, but has some black. This one has more gold and a little bit of black. This one doesn't have much gold at all, but I'm just having to take what I can get in order to get numbers. Now let's look at a representative group of their second batch, and you can see we're still getting greens and marbles, and these youngsters are, the light colored ones are going to be gold. So we're still getting genes from other males, and no telling, uh, because these fish didn't come from, we didn't have any breeder survivors. We simply had to grow up babies and select them. Who knows what the genetics of this group of fish is? But I'll do the same thing I did in the late 1990s. I'll keep this batch of fish and gradually add young breeders to it. And as I get better breeders, I'll remove the worst ones, specifically the male. If I get a male that's better than these two males, they'll go, they'll be retired, and he'll get all the females. And then I'll mate him to his daughters, his granddaughters, his great granddaughters until I get one of his descendants better than he is. In the meantime, I'll be picking the females closest to what I want. It'll take me a while, but I'll get back to a solid gold fish with solid black fins. If you go to our website, I think there's an old blog about them. If you go to our website and do a search for gold wag Sailfin Molly or gold wag Molly, you should see what they look like at the end of the last process and how I'm going to get there again. Okay, I did want to talk about one thing. In an earlier video, I talked about some impaired fertility in some of our fish. Oh, by the way, let's take a look at this one. This female is starting to show male characteristics. She's not going to turn into a male, but she's basically sterile now. But she's done her job. I'm going to let her live out her life in retirement, and some of her offspring will be useful. At any rate, we had impaired fertility in some of our fish, and I have a suspicion that it has to do with leaf litter blown into the greenhouses after or during Hurricane Harvey, because we cut out the tops to save the structure and things blew in. We got 14 inches of rain into the systems. After that, we had reduced fertility, especially in greenhouse 2. The winds from Harvey came out of the east, and so most of the leaf litter got dropped into greenhouse 2. It acted as a kind of shield for greenhouse 1. And so we've had some fertility problems. I think it's related to leaf litter. A little bit of evidence of that is we had a flock of chickens, and about 3 weeks after the storm, our hens quit laying. They didn't lay for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I cleaned out their water trough, which was loaded with leaf litter from the storm, and a couple weeks later they started laying eggs again. Also, a customer recently messaged me, was looking for some more fish, and he started using a plant-based algicide to control algae in his vats, and all of a sudden his fish were sterile, not producing fry, and so he thinks there's something in that. So I'm working with Texas A&M on what the problem is. They had the audacity to tell me that I'm overfeeding the fish, that the females are too fat. I don't buy that because I feed greenhouse 1 and 2 the same, and greenhouse 1 isn't having the near as much fertility problem as greenhouse 2. But I'm going to suggest to them that they look at 3 different tree leaves here: huisach, mesquite, and hackberry, because those were the leaves that were blown into the chickens and into greenhouse 2, and see if there's some sort of kind of birth control chemicals in those leaves. Interestingly enough, Texas A&M found that our local mesquite trees actually have methamphetamine, very, very low amounts of it. And that's interesting because methamphetamine was supposed to be a synthetic material, but apparently our mesquite trees make it. Anyway, sorry for the digression. I'm going to select some young females to give these males to set this breeding colony back up, and we'll see what happens in the next couple cycles. Good fish keeping.